Friends, whenever we talk about those movies where a single man stands alone against the evil of the entire world, only a few names come to mind, and at the very top is Jason Statham. And if you've seen The Beekeeper, then you know it wasn't just another action film. It was a story of vengeance and justice, burning so fiercely that it touched the heart. In the first movie, we saw how a quiet, simple man who looked like nothing more than a caretaker of bees was actually part of a secret organization the world didn't even know existed. An organization known as the Beekeepers, whose mission was to eliminate the poisonous pests of society, who prey on innocent lives, just like bees protect their hive. At the end of the first film, Jason Statham's character had avenged Claire's death. He destroyed the cyber scam network that had robbed countless innocent people and shaken even the government. But friends, the story didn't end there, because once a beekeeper steps outside his hive again, he can never truly return to a normal life. That's exactly where The Beekeeper 2 begins. The story picks up right where the last film left us. The city streets are quiet, but it's the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Jason Statham, or Mr. Clay, thought he could spend the rest of his life tending bees and living in peace. But the truth is, his fight was far from over. Because in the first film, he only destroyed the pawns standing in front of him, but the real power behind them, the network pulling strings across the globe, is still alive. This time, the story is deeper and far more dangerous. In The Beekeeper 2, we learn that the group running online scams was just a mask. Behind it lies an even bigger game, where high-ranking government officials, powerful corporate leaders, and underground arms dealers are all working together. These people don't just steal money from the innocent. They exploit politics and even war for their own gain. The film opens with a powerful sequence set in a small village in Africa, where innocent people are being destroyed by a fake healthcare scheme. Children are dying from a lack of medicine, and no one is there to save them. Suddenly, the screen cuts to a silent shot. An old man unscrews a jar of honey, while the buzz of bees echoes in the background. That's our beekeeper, ready to rise once again. But friends, this film isn't just about blood and violence. It's also about an idea. The Beekeeper 2 reminds us that true evil doesn't just live in criminals, but in those powerful figures who destroy millions of lives for their own greed and power. And when the law and government can't stop them, one man steps forward to deliver justice in his own way. Jason Statham's character appears more dangerous than ever before. His eyes don't just carry revenge this time. They carry a mission. He knows that unless he destroys the root of the problem, this poisonous web will keep spreading. Early in the movie, we see him trying to live a quiet life, still taking care of his bees. But when he learns that people in Africa and Asia are falling victim to a new version of the same scam, his blood boils again. This time, the enemy isn't just a gang or a single network. It's the system itself. That's why The Beekeeper 2 feels bigger and deadlier than the first. A new villain enters the picture. A billionaire businessman who, behind his polished image, is the mastermind running the entire operation. He has a private army, connections in government, and uses technology to trap the whole world in his grip. The script takes us right into that classic Jason Statham style, where every fight sequence keeps you glued to your seat. But beneath all the action, the film also forces you to ask, if the system itself becomes corrupt, then who will deliver justice? This time, Jason's character isn't fighting alone. A new character joins the story, a young female hacker who once worked inside the network, but has now abandoned it and wants to help the beekeeper. Her entry adds both emotional depth and technical power, because this fight won't just be waged with fists and guns. It will be fought in the cyber world too. The first half of the film is about unraveling this web. The beekeeper travels across different parts of the world, destroying enemy bases, fighting armies, and slowly making his way toward the mastermind who controls it all. Friends, where we left the story, the beekeeper, Jason Statham's character, had already stepped out of his quiet life and made the decision to dig down to the very roots of the evil that plagued the world. From Africa to Asia, he had destroyed several networks, but the real game was still ahead. Slowly, the story leads us to the mastermind who stands as the true king of this dark empire. Out in the open, this man appears to the world as a billionaire philanthropist, admired as a savior for building empires in healthcare, technology, and education. But behind the curtain, he is the one spreading the real poison, exploiting fear and desperation to build his empire of control. This time, The Beekeeper isn't fighting for revenge alone. His mission is to rip out the system at its roots. By his side stands the young hacker girl who once worked for the network. She reveals that millions of innocent people around the world are trapped in a project that is nothing more than a giant web. It lures them in with promises of health insurance and digital security, but in reality, it strips away their private data, drains their money, and even controls their physical movements through location tracking. The real thrill begins when the Beekeeper dives deeper into this network. He doesn't just take on the villain's private army. He shakes the very foundations of governments and even agencies like the FBI, who start to see his mission as a threat to law and order. But the real question here is, when the law itself becomes corrupt, when top officials in government are part of the scheme, then who will stand for justice? That's where the Beekeeper's true purpose comes into focus. His mission is not just to fight and kill, but to deliver justice, no matter the cost. The middle portion of the film takes us on a thrilling journey. On one side, the Beekeeper is tearing down enemy strongholds, and on the other, he's rescuing the innocent. Time and again, he finds himself in situations where he must value the lives of others over his own survival. These are the moments that separate him from a mere killer. He's no longer just a man seeking vengeance, but a beacon of hope for those whose voices are never heard. As the story pushes forward, the inevitable showdown between the villain and the Beekeeper draws closer. One by one, the villain's armies fall, his fortresses crumble, and finally, the film carries us into the grand climax, where Beekeeper and the mastermind stand face to face. The scene is set atop a towering skyscraper, flames raging around them, machines sparking, and in the background, the relentless buzz of swarming bees fills the air. The villain tries to stop him with one last plea, that if he kills him, the entire system will collapse, leaving millions jobless and the world in chaos. But the Beekeeper answers with a line that defines the film's theme. When the hive is poisoned, the only way to save it is to rebuild the colony from the ground up. What follows is a breathtaking final battle. More than fists and weapons, it's a clash of will and ideology. In the end, the Beekeeper defeats the villain, and with his fall, the vast empire of lies crumbles across the world. This is the moment when audiences realize that even a single man, if driven by the right purpose, can shake the very foundation of the system. The ending is crafted in a way that feels complete, yet leaves the door wide open for the future. In the final scenes, the Beekeeper returns to a village where children smile at him as he hands them a jar of honey. But as the camera closes in on his face, the fire in his eyes remains, silently promising that his fight is not over. Now, friends, let's talk about the release and production details. The Beekeeper 2 has already created massive buzz across Hollywood. Jason Statham's name alone is enough to drive this film toward blockbuster territory. It is expected to release in early 2026 and will once again be directed by David Ayer. The budget has been set at around $100 million, as the sequel will feature larger-scale action sequences, international locations, and high-tech VFX. As for the cast, Jason Statham, of course, leads the film, but this time a strong new female character is being introduced, to be played by a well-known Hollywood actress. The role of the villain has been reserved for another major star, though the identity remains under wraps to preserve the surprise element of the film. When it comes to box office potential, analysts believe The Beekeeper 2 could easily gross between $500 and $600 million worldwide. Jason Statham's global fan base is massive, and action thrillers consistently dominate the market. In particular, the film is expected to open strong at the US box office, potentially crossing $100 million in its very first weeks.